Good evening and welcome to the town of Waukesha. Tonight is Monday, September 30th, 2019. And the town board meeting tonight is to go through a workshop to look at the operating budget for 2020. And we're beginning the meeting at about 6:31 p.m. We will dispense with some of the formalities of roll call, pledge of allegiance, things of that nature. There will be no formal action taken this evening. It'll simply be an open discussion. Administrator Nicholas, you might simply give us a bit of information, the timetable we need to be on to complete this budget work, please.
So we have, this budget needs to be completed so I can send it to the paper for proper notice by October 14th. So we have one meeting in between here, which is October 10th, that we can go through one more time if need be.
Okay, and this is your work product. Town board is looking at this for the first time this evening. Do you want to
That's correct.
Spend a little bit of time and just run through this, give us highlights or whatever you choose to do?
So I put in all the revenues that we received confirmation for our shared rev and our personal property tax, transportation aids, and so on down the line. I estimated some, looking at the last 3 years, what the amount of revenue we brought in on the different line items. So if we take a look at general property taxes, went up 1.53. This is the amount that the 1,275,442. That is minus. I've already taken out the 400,000 that we put into the capital budget that we spoke about at the last meeting. So that's where that number came from. And being very
Quick one on that. You've got in 2019 budget, that last item there, fund balance is applied, 100,000, and we've got nothing in it for this year. We actually had $100,000 in there for a applied fund balance to balance the budget in 19. Is that correct?
Our fund balance applied. We applied that this year when we did the 2 budget amendments for the border protection.
Okay, I'm with you. So that's what bumped that up. That was not part of the original budget. It's the budget amendments. Got it.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions on revenue? Any changes you'd like to see in revenues? All right. Yeah. We'll go on to general government. I'll just touch on the places that are going to change. The court legal fees, I've reduced that by I've suggested you reduce that to 23% from 13,000 to 10,000. Once we got through our major court issues, we've gone down quite a bit this year. Our actuals are only at 6,000 at this point. I'm projecting a year end at 9,000, suggesting that you take that at make that a $10,000 budget item. The legal fees reimbursed, that dropped 42% by going from 35,000 to 20,000. That equals out the revenues of the legal fees reimbursed, and you'll see that with planning and engineering. If the revenues were changed, the expenses were changed as well. Town legal fees, we've seen a increase in the town legal fees. We budgeted for $40,000 in 19. We're currently at 49,000, and our projected at this rate would be about 61,000. I'm suggesting a 50% increase from 40,000 to 60,000. All right, so
can we
go
go
ahead.
back to revenues just for a moment?
Sure.
I mean, you asked if there was any, I hadn't quite digested it all since
no
this
problem.
is kind of a first look.
Yep.
So our projected revenues from year end over as compared to budget. We're going over 132 we're coming in under 132, right?
Correct.
132,000?
Mm-hmm.
Now, 100 of that is the
The
budget
fund
amendment
balance.
that you talked about.
Right. And then another area is that we're under is the,
Intergovernmental revenues is coming in 21,000 short.
and then you take the recycling aids, which came in at 21,000.
Yeah, that's the intergovernmental, right?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, yes.
Okay, so the intergovernmental tracks back to the recycling aid.
Mhm.
And, cause we're actually going over 11,000 on property taxes.
Yep.
And then we're coming in under 11,000 because of the 10,000 that you talked about for the liquor license. And then we're coming in 10,000 short on the miscellaneous revenue. Can we go back to that for a moment, please? We were projecting,
14,000.
under miscellaneous revenue, we had budgeted
Oh,
113,
here, yeah, I'm
and we're
sorry.
only projecting 103. So where are we falling 10,000 short on that? I see,
Engineering fees reimbursed. Yes. And legal fees reimbursed.
okay. Then what is the miscellaneous revenue, 29,000 that was projected year end that we had budgeted 14,000 for. You got your engineering, legal, and planning reimbursed, and then you got miscellaneous revenue. And we had budgeted 14,000,
Mm-hmm.
and
And we
you're
came in at
projecting it to come at
29,000.
29.
Yep. Let me, if you give me a couple minutes, you can take a look at expenses. I'll go and just pull that, that transaction if you
Okay,
like. Okay?
thank you.
So the majority, I remember looking at this now, the majority is the credit card rebates that we're getting from US Bank.
Okay,
That's the majority of our revenue off of this.
thank you.
Just go backwards on a minute. I think the question was, and maybe I misunderstood the question, but we're talking about the miscellaneous revenue, is that where we're at?
Mhm.
So if the projected year end for this year is 29,000, why are we only proposing a budget of 15? Is that your question, Mike, basically? Well, it's my question then.
Okay. We can increase it.
No, I'm just looking for an explanation.
When I looked at the charges, I kind of looked back to what we did the last 3 years, and we were nowhere near the 29,000 that we were this year, so I thought it was an anomaly. So I didn't want to over budget it, but I'm happy to change that if you'd like to change that number.
Well, I guess let me go to, we're at 321.54 now,
Mhm.
with 3 months to go, but we're projecting 29 at the end of the year.
Right.
How's that work?
Well, because we already have the majority of our charges already in. We only get paid one more time from US Bank. 'Cause it's a quarter, at the end of the year, which will probably come in January. But our dog license late fees, parking tickets, yeah, the majority of it is, well, I know what we did. We caught up on our ditch bond forfeitures as well. So we had people that did not, get their ditch bonds. They never did their driveways after, per code, says that you no longer get your ditch bond if you didn't, finish the 3 things that you need to finish and request your bond. So we had some 2015 ditch bonds that were never completed, and some 2018, we did the forfeiture for 2018. They should have been done in 18.
So the 15,000 seems pretty accurate then, right?
I think it's,
I mean, you're not gonna get 29,000 every year. You're not gonna have those
I-
to catch up on, are you?
Right.
Or are you
I-
behind again?
no,
Okay.
we're on target right now. Did you want to, would you like to change that at all, the 15,000, and bring that up at all?
Not at this time,
Okay, then let's,
unless somebody else wants to.
all right, so, then, we stopped at salaries, for the, administration. So, last year, our salaries for our poll workers, the staff, myself, was 124,000. In 18 was 126, almost 127,000. We're proposing 150,000, which is a 20.97%. That's due to the fact that we're gonna have a potential 5 elections next year, one being the presidential, which means many more hours of poll worker time and staff time. We are also seeing a potential of a turnover of 2 of the staff in the clerk's office this year. So we may, we would be using 2 people, those 2 people that would be leaving, helping the new people get to know their jobs in place. So we're gonna see a little bit of that as well. So that increases the FICA and the retirement and such. And then election services has gone from 100% up from 2,000, I'm sorry, in 19 to 4,000 in 2020, again because of the election. The training stays the same. I reduced the printing by 40%. We're only at 2,000 this year. My projected year end is 5,000, and but we budgeted for 8,400, thinking that we were going to do a couple extra newsletters during the year, which we did not do. Supplies and expenses, that is up 66% due to the election. Our IT services are up just a little bit due to the fact that we're increased some nodes, and we also have a little increase built into our contract with Gordon Flesh. Our accounting support is going up. The accounting support is essentially our accounting software. That's the annual fees for that. Our auditing, next page. How about if I stay on this page?
So,
Do you want to talk about
Sure.
page 3 first before we go on?
budgeted, 2850. So let's talk about the 40% increase in the accounting support. Is the licensing fee just going up that much?
No, I just under budgeted the licensing fee last year.
Okay. So in 18,
We didn't
you
have,
applied in 18 what we did, or you applied in 19 what we did in 18 is a better way to see it. So
Right.
why do we feel we under budgeted for it?
well, the bill came in at $3,800 for our accounting support, which is our software,
Workhorse, right?
annual workhorse software. Mhm.
So was the total cost for the support in 18, 2850?
Yes, because we had our original contract had them do half a year to half a year, and so we only, we got so many years of free with, when we purchased, then we had a half year left, and I just misbudgeted that
Okay.
for 19.
Are we in a contract with them?
No, if we keep their software, we have to pay
Yeah,
the
yeah, of
annual fee,
course.
but no, now we can move forward. But when we first purchased it, we wanted so much support, and they gave us support and didn't have us pay for it for so long. Kind of went with the package.
Okay.
Are in terms of the town legal fees, the legal fees that are involved for the incorporation effort, where are those proposed to go into in terms of expenditure?
They are in the border protection, which is later on page 2
Okay.
of expenses, which would be page 4 of the sheet.
So our town legal fees, are these excluding the border agreement
Correct.
issues?
Yes.
I guess and we can come back to that, would like to, we need to be realistic about it, but I'd like to see if we could move back off that $60,000.
Okay, I'll highlight that as a come back to.
And I do have a concern about the salaries and wages for clerk treasurer. I know you dropped into the conversation that could be a turnover in people. If they have to be replaced, are you anticipating that somebody gets replaced at a higher wage or working more hours, or what are you anticipating?
I'm anticipating, right now, I'm anticipating a person coming in, people coming in at about the same, if not maybe 1 day extra, but not anything more than that. So right now, I have one person here 2 days a week, one person here 3 days a week, and we might move that to 2 people working 3 days a week. Depends on what kind of staff I can bring in. The other thing is, during the time that they will be being trained, we're paying both my current staff and the new staff.
And how long do you think that training would take, or how many hours it's involved in that? So the current staff would be doing the training of the new people and not you?
Correct, absolutely.
And how long would that take?
Well, it depends on what time of year it is. I think they'll be like, they'd be able to come in and help during specific times to get them to understand the program at different times. I didn't put in a specific number of hours for either one of those.
I mean, would 8 hours of training per position, would that be realistic or not?
No, that would not.
You think it's more?
Yeah, if you think about the person that's sitting down doing auditing, or getting prepped for the audit, that takes days and weeks to prep for an audit. We have the election, doing all the WISPO work. That's something that we'd have somebody working with that person doing. Because if I'm helping them, the new staff, training them, then I can't get any of my work done.
Well, I understand that, but I'm trying to figure out how many hours, I'm trying to get a handle on how many hours of training it might be.
It depends on how quickly it depends on who we hire. If
Well,
I
I
hire somebody
understand.
from another, that has been a clerk treasurer somewhere else, we'd probably be paying them a little bit more, and I wouldn't have to do as much training.
Or are you at liberty to, and if you're not, that's fine, but indicate who the 2 anticipated turnover people might be, or are you not prepared to discuss that tonight?
I am not, but you could
Okay.
probably make an assumption.
Okay.
There's only 2 people in my office.
So if we're looking at this, we're looking at a $26,000 increase, right?
Correct, and
So how much of that 26,000 do you think is
poll
because
workers?
of the poll workers?
Poll workers I figured the poll workers would be between 17 and 19,000.
So 17 and 19,000 total, or 17 and 19,000 increase?
Increase.
Okay. So, do we wanna call it 17?
You could do that.
Okay, so then 9,000 is for the increase in office staff.
Right.
And what is your average office staff making? Ballpark.
$20.
Okay. What was that, 19,000, 9,000, I mean, right?
Yep.
So that's 450 hours of training. So that's 11 weeks of training. Ballpark.
I don't
Well,
think
they
it would
don't
be
work
more.
they don't work every day, every week.
I'm
They're
just
only
talk-
like 2 days a
talking
week
about
people.
hours.
I understand that,
It's
but they're
11
only,
weeks of training, whether you want to call it 11 weeks over 100 weeks or 11 weeks over 11 weeks.
I understand
or
that, but
11
if
weeks
they're
over 50, so
people that
it's-
are working 2 days a week, I'm,
I'm just trying to break it down so that we can get our arms around it.
I am
That's all. It's
too.
450 hours at $20 an hour.
yeah.
So can we cut that back, or is that the number that we need?
I can't
That's what I'm trying
imagine,
to get
I
to.
can't imagine you need 450 hours of training.
Okay, so what do we want to assign to it? Kinda hoping to get home today, not tomorrow.
Well, we all are.
Just so-
Just want to keep it moving along, that's all.
Just keep in mind that my contract increases in there as well.
I understand.
Any of the, if I have to hire somebody for more than $20 an hour, if you buck this all the way down, you know, we might be going
Well,
to a
we can
budget
either
amendment.
reverse
is all I'm saying.
engineer it or forward engineer it, makes no difference to me. You thought that 19,000 or 18,000, if you want to take your midpoint, was for elections. Are we as a board willing to live with $18,000 of this increase in salaries is because of election cost? Because election cost is essentially unavoidable, right? We all agree that election cost is unavoidable?
Sure.
Okay, step one. Step two, are we all comfortable with 18 of the 26,000 is because of election cost?
I don't know how the number comes about.
Well, let's work it backwards
So-
then. So what does your average election poll worker make?
$10 an hour.
Okay, so let's take 18,000 divided by 10, that's 1,800 hours. Divided, we're gonna have 5 elections?
5 elections.
Okay, so that's 360 more hours per election. That would seem high,
But
right?
it's, keep in mind that it's not just election day.
Okay,
Poll workers are, and staff, and that's also some staff cost in there that are working.
I'll keep
Late.
anything in mind.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get the board comfortable with the number.
Okay.
Even if it goes up or down, makes no difference. We just gotta be comfortable
Yep.
with the number.
So we have staff working, we've got 2 weeks before the election, you've got time after the election that we're closing up that election. We have in-office absentees, we had, at the last presidential and gubernatorial, we were here on weekends, working. If we don't get that bill passed, we're gonna be here on the weekends. And our poll workers were here during that time, the weekend before the election, prepping for the election as well. So it's
Okay.
not just, I wanna just make sure that you understand, it's not just election day.
So are
There's a
you
lot of
comfortable with
election.
the additional 360 hours per election?
I am,
Okay,
because that's kind of how I worked at what we used in the past for 2018, and then looked at 2016, and then brought it forward, so.
That just seems like a lot to me. I mean, that'd be 45 8-hour days.
okay. So what number would you like, Mr. Chairman?
I'm just telling you my off the top of the head impression on that. How many hours per election do we typically figure? How many poll worker hours per election, or what does an election cost us?
So we have 15 poll workers at a polling site,
And we have 2 polling sites, right?
right? We don't do 15 up here, though. We do 15 altogether.
Okay,
So we have 15 poll workers. They work
times $10 an hour,
16 hours,
times 16 hours the day of, right?
yep. And then multiply that by 5.
Oh, yeah, the 5, okay, 2,400. That's 12,000.
Right.
Okay, so now you
Okay.
take 2
So
weeks.
that's for a day of,
Yep, just day of. So now you take 2 weeks before the election,
okay?
where I have in-office absentee.
Okay,
So that's 8 hours a day for 2 weeks, and I have 2 poll workers here, plus staff.
so that's 8 times 2 times 10.
And then 8 times 2 times 10 times
That's 160.
for 5 elections.
800.
Okay. And then the weekend before, we work on Saturday for about 4 hours.
So that's 2 more people, right?
Nope, that's 8 people on Saturday before. Because we're working in the poll books.
So that's 8 times 10,
Yep,
that's it?
that's it.
Times 5.
It's 400.
So that's basically $21,000 divided by 5 per election. $4,200 per election. You want to round up to 5,000? I used to know a guy who liked round numbers.
Still do. How much, how much, how much, how much is in the, you want to do it that way, how much is in the actual then for 2019? Of the 88,091, 88 so far, how much of that is for elections? Do you have any idea?
I don't, right off the top of my head, I do not.
Okay.
So if you, so do we want to move on, or do we want to get a different number here?
I say move on for now. Anybody else?
All right. Audit services went up 3%. That was part of our contract with them to 16.4. Our assessor services are the same are down. It's actually it was budgeted $1,000 too much last year. It's 16.9 or 26.9. Looking at the contract. Town hall utilities, I'm figuring we're gonna finish at 12. I put in there 13. I just never know that I've never seen the utilities ever go down, but if you wanna keep it at 12.1, that's fine too. Contracted services, I had budgeted at 19,000, in 18 was 21.5. Our projected year end is 23,000, and contracted services are things like our janitor, our Hawes, which is 4,000.
What's 4,000?
Hawes.
Oh. Okay.
We have municipal code whenever we make a change on our code. And then the county treasurer's office when it comes to the paying for collection, tax collection. So supplies and expenses, I kept it the same. Liability insurance, I never budgeted for.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, how's that zero?
Don't we wish, right? I'll make that 21,000.
Do we
Never
still
seen
have a
insurance for that.
significant payment on that for this year, or how often is that invoiced?
Our liability insurance?
Right.
It's Horton does a, quarterly, billing. So I'm expecting to see a bill again.
How did we go from 2018 actual, 70, right here,
Right.
7787 to 21,000 projected, or?
Because last year we reallocated. Most of this was, a lot of the general government liability was shy, but once you go into DPW, you'll see theirs was 22,000 and liability. Let's see what public safety is. DPW. Stay the same. I thought we readjusted that.
Have you gotten any preliminary numbers back from Horton?
I haven't yet.
I would expect liability will go up significantly. It's been the trend.
Has it?
Yeah.
So I'll nail down the liability. Sorry. Sorry, guys.
Shut mine off.
So,
So I'll nail down the liability insurance. See if we can get something, I'll work on that on
just a second, please.
all areas. I thought we redistributed that last year.
Okay, thank you.
So I'll look into liability insurance, anything else on, and then we have the border protection, I'm estimating at 60,000 finishing up this year. And I'm proposing 50,000 because we still have, we have January to June.
Well, let's just talk about that for a minute. That is pretty much going to be comprised of legal, engineering, planning, and our consultant. Is that primarily what makes that up, the major components?
That's correct, and the postage for all the,
Okay,
all
but
the
don't
letters going out.
we, I know some of that goes into next year, but wouldn't we anticipate that most of that expenditure would be in this calendar year?
we will not finish everything before
Well, I
this
understand that, but
calendar year.
I'm just trying to get a sense, what are we anticipating? I mean, I know there'll be some expenses, but where do we think that $50,000 number would come from? And I understand there's a lot of unknown about that, but wouldn't we anticipate that most of the engineering and planning and consultants fees would come through this year?
I believe the majority, yes. That's why I
So are
figured
we thinking that's
60,000.
mostly legal fees? And I understand there'd be some publication, other expense kind of
Right.
stuff.
Yeah, I'm expecting legal fees next year. We're expecting possible legal.
Okay,
You can reduce it if you'd like. These are just estimates for you to start with.
well, I understand.
Is any of your time in there, Kathy?
No,
Should it be?
it's up to you guys.
We want it to be realistic.
Well, then you could do that, but then you'd have to take out of the general government part.
Correct.
It's still in general government.
Yeah.
It just changes the line item.
I don't see a problem leaving that in general government, but up to the rest of you.
Do you want to come back to Border Protection?
Sure.
Okay. All right. So with that, thinking that we're going to still have to bring in the liability, that still brings the general government budget down from last year by 5%. It'll be probably closer to 4% once I'm done. So public safety. We talked about the sheriff's services.
So just
We're at-
before we leave the general government, so we're basically just at the 518 plus the 21 for the liability.
Correct. So
When
we,
you make this percent change budget, I'm sorry for
yep,
interrupting,
no problem.
the minus 5%, that's 2019 budget over 2020 budget?
That's correct.
Okay. So that would be the 506, 447.
No, that would be the
No, I think it's
545, not the projected year end, the
It's
budget
budget,
itself.
budget to
I'm
budget.
sorry, 545, right. 545, 956. And then going to 518, 666, plus the 21. Change in percent, so wow, right on the button. That's still a 5% cut, 4.99.
Okay.
The 21,000 really didn't move it. Okay.
So,
Well, hold on just a second. You gotta take, if you're gonna take the 518, 666, right?
Plus the 21.
Plus the 21,000, you get 539, 666. If you divide that by the 545, 956, 49, that's like 1.2%.
You're right. Yeah, 539. I see my error. Okay.
all right, so public safety, sheriff's services, you just approved the budget, the contract for 172.9. I put in a little bit of overtime in there to pad it to 174. That's a 2.35 increase. The fire department salaries is, their request last year was 340,000 or 341,000, and they are projected to end this year at 385,000, which will probably require us to go to a budget amendment by the end of the year for salaries. We're not over budget right now, but when we start getting closer to that, that amount, we're going to need to do a budget amendment this year. So, to hit that, if they actually hit that projected amount. His request for 2020 is 398,000, which is an increase of 16.73%.
So do we know, is that increased runs, just increased cost from salaries?
I believe it's increased costs from salaries on the way that he is working, having more people on site. Remember at the end of the year, budget was done, and you guys gave the on-call guys a bump in salary that would bring it up, trying to get people to stay with the town instead
Okay.
of going elsewhere. So that's the reason for the increase.
I think when I chat with Chief, it's part run time, but I think a significant amount of we bumped basically up, I think, to $15 an hour, right?
But when we bumped it up to $15 an hour, we took into account how many forecasted runs. So I'm surprised to see us come in that much over budget. But, okay, Chief's not here, we keep moving.
Okay. So, the next, just trying to get the largest things done, because of the salary, FICA and retirement changes. The, health benefits, I'm still waiting for the finals on that. Your choice starts, in October, so we'll be seeing the, final numbers from the state on what our, health and dental benefits will be. And then the utilities, small increase on the utilities, the contracted services, he kept the same. He reduced his training, it reduced the printing, reduced by $200 maintenance and repairs, and decreased his supplies and expenses by 2.5%. I'm gonna look at liabilities. Then we go right into permits and inspection. Last year, we budgeted for 127, that was what was approved. My suggestion to you is to go to 112.5. We're in 18, we were at 111, or 112 approximately. I'm expecting we're gonna get to about 105 this year. Supplies and expenses for him, we just sent out that cost on his seals. We had to get some more seals in, that's why there's a 314 amount that's expected. Planning fees to be reimbursed, remember this, I kept that the same as last year on revenues, that's the same as it is for expenses. Your planner services are, we projected this year to go to 22,005. Last year was 10,005, and we budgeted for 27,000. I'm suggesting we go down to 15,000. The reason the jump, if you remember, we had the comprehensive plan, and that won't be in there this year. So the increase in public safety as requested, is 3.78 increase from 19's budget. Salaries and wages for public works. We currently have 2.5 people. Well, right now we're back down to 2 people. I am requesting a third full-time person. We've increased the workload in the department this year by culverts and mowing and trying to get caught up on tree work. I think we have a better chance of keeping someone if we go to a full-time employee, as the part-time employees kind of come and go pretty readily because they're all looking for full-time employment. So I increased that by $42,000 for figuring a % increase for Jerry, as well as an extra person.
Did we have a part-time mower this summer?
We did.
We did?
Yeah, he wasn't here much because he came kind of late from college and then left early for college and then took a few vacations, but yeah, he was here in between that.
All right.
So so that's why the increase also for retirement FICA. Then you get to the health and dental benefits. So last year the budget was for 20,000. It was for one person's health and dental benefits. Our second full-time person decided at the beginning of the year to go ahead and jump on our health and dental benefits. So that increased our year end for this year to double what the cost was. With that third person, I budgeted for a full-time salary, full-time family plan for health and benefits, not knowing if it would be family or single if you decided to go with that third person. Engineering, no change in road services. Our public works utility, just a small increase from, why is it so much? It says it's 23%.
Well, yeah, from the 12,150 to 15,000, I
Yeah.
can see that.
The contracted street maintenance,
Do you really, just go back to the public works utilities, and I know this isn't a small, I mean, it's a relatively small item, but why would we project like a 23 to 24% increase in that?
we can reduce that. Remember, these are numbers that I kind of gave an idea of what the utilities would cost us next year. Be happy to, you want to come back to that one?
I guess
You want to stay at 12.1?
I'm just looking, what did we do? I know we got that split across
All
three places. What did we do for utilities for the town hall?
General government
Yeah,
is,
for that. It's on the, towards the top of page 4.
no, not 3, that's why, sorry. So we went up.
7% there.
That's what I'm sorry, I should have done that for this one as well.
All right, let's keep,
7%.
we can keep going. That's a small item.
Yeah, 13,000. Okay. Then repairs and maintenance the same, supplies and expenses the same. The liability insurance I'm gonna review. Snow removal,
Can we just go back for a minute? Supplies and expenses, what does that entail? What's that include? Do you know off the top of your head?
signs, poles, bags of concrete, gravel,
All right,
all of those things.
okay, thank you.
So if we go back to the repairs and maintenance,
That's,
that includes the crack filling and the slag, right?
no, repairs and maintenance is just the repairs and maintenance
Vehicle?
on the vehicles.
Oh, we didn't get to streets yet?
No.
Oh, thank you. Okay,
Oh, we did, we up a couple, right under Public Works Utility.
oh, contracted street.
Contracted
maintenance.
street maintenance. When I talked to Jerry, we thought about reducing it. This is, but we didn't do any slag work this year, so he thought we should keep it the same. So,
So that's,
that's 175,
yeah, why is that showing up as a 0% change?
because it
It's
was
budget to budget.
175, budget to budget,
Oh, you had 175 last year.
yeah. This year, 19,
Right, that's what I meant, thank you.
yeah.
But what was the, and this is a reach, but do you recall what the slag bid was?
Was
we
that
didn't?
50 something or something like that?
But I
50
don't
something,
remember off the
60.
top of my head.
We paired that back during the year part because of the extra money we spent for the salt, right, Kathy? Is why that was pulled back. I
Right,
think
the
I
contract
thought the
maintenance.
slag things, I didn't remember, I thought it was like 50-something.
Right, when we looked at slag, crack fill, and flex patch, we did take into consideration that we had that budget, the public works budget was going to see an increase both because of the health insurance benefits and the extra salt that was purchased. So when we brought forward, Jerry and I brought forward the roads that were gonna be done, we cut back to what we thought we could afford and stay under budget.
Okay.
All right, so snow removal. I've got, kept the wages at 30,000. We expect to use that 30,000 this year. That 30,000 is not only our regular staff, but it's also our called in, just our plow drivers themselves. The snow plowing and salting, that's our contractor. I kept that the same. We're gonna get close to that this year. But the year before, we were only at 55,000. We're gonna stay at 70,000 if you feel that works for you. Our supplies and expenses, the costs on salt is,
Can we just go back 1 minute?
Okay.
Why, on the 3 items, salary and wages stay the same, FICA stays the same, the retirement jumps up 33.27%? Is that computed differently next year than it is this year?
it's not that much of a change. It does jump up, but it doesn't jump up that much. Let me check and see.
Okay.
I may have used taking more hours on, from staff, from Jerry and Paul that are on retirement down here. So, the
Okay.
breakup of the amount of time for Jerry and Paul increases the amount of retirement. It's not the exact percentage
Okay.
each year, so. But I'll look at this, just to make sure my numbers are right. All right, so, supplies and expenses, I brought that from 109,000 to 96,000. We're not purchasing, we currently have over 300 ton already of salt. We are expected for around 1,200 ton of salt for next year. Last year's salt cost us $77.88. I rounded it to $80 for the budget at 1,200 ton to get the $96,000.
That's reasonable.
Garbage and recycling stayed the same. The
Just can we go
Control
back
stay
to
the
that just for a minute? We are still under an existing contract for that.
we are,
Just looking even at the actuals for 18, roughly 459, projecting out to 500. How do we
project that out.
account even for the change up to the 500,000?
Well, we have just the increase from 459,000 to 500,000. There's a 2% increase in our contract,
Okay,
plus any new homes that come in, extra canisters that people ask for, all come in.
When is that contract up?
Well, it was a 10-year contract. I think we did it in 15?
It was 10 years? I thought it was 7.
No, I thought it was a 10-year contract. I'll look at the contract, just make sure the time
Okay.
frame.
I thought it was 7.
And it might have been 7 with 3 years that could automatically go, but I remember saying it was a 10-year contract quite a few times, so. Contract year.
Yeah, the reason that we did that is because the amount that we were paying at the end of the contract was less than the amount that we paid before, the year before the contract.
But I mean, do we get to review services though in between here now and then?
We do.
We had a
I've got
meeting
some
with them.
issues, I mean, some people have brought up, and I'm kind of concerned about that too.
And we've done we get contacted from the residents, we get a report from, Advance. Periodically, I ask them for a report, like August was a terrible month, I thought, and so I asked for a report to see what kind of, the number of, issues they had and how they dealt with it, or if they were, assessed. In some cases, it's, has to do with the residents' concern. It may not be what our contract allows. So a lot of times they'll put out large items that, for large pickup that shouldn't be in large pickup. And I'm not talking about just appliances and things like that. I'm talking about things that can fit in their garbage bin, but they don't. They keep them all out for large pickup, and if it fits in your garbage bin, you have to put it in your garbage bin, so they don't pick it up. So we get a lot of those types of calls, missed calls, lots of missed calls, and they missed like complete roads in August.
That's what I was gonna say, a lot of missed,
Right.
a lot of missed
So,
roads.
yeah, so we were on the phone after every pickup, so all Wednesday morning, all Monday morning, talking about Friday, so.
I mean, are people calling the town hall complaining?
They call the town hall to complain, and we tell them to call them, because a lot of time, call advance, because they're keeping the record for us. We aren't doing the record.
I guess my concern with that is it's kind of like the cat watching the canary cage, you know, if they're calling them, or we're not finding out how many complaints they really do get.
Well, other than the fact that they give us a report. The issue, though, sometimes is not something we'd be able to handle. So if they call.
I know
and say
we're
we
not gonna
missed-
handle it, but we do have some leverage here to talk to them to get these issues straightened out. I mean, some of the stuff is repeat stuff, and,
Right.
I mean, that's more of my concern is, I know you tell them to call the company, but how does that fix the problem? I mean, they say, yeah,
Well, and,
they're not accountable to anybody, is what I'm saying, I guess.
right, well, Brian and I already had a sit-down with them once,
Okay.
a couple months back, to try to get a good handle on why we're having so many missed streets. I know I sent him an email and tried to get him to understand that we didn't add all these streets. These streets are the same streets. We didn't change the contract. There shouldn't be a problem with it, but if they have a new person, they might miss something, but we talked about continuity, in their staffing for us. But we're trying to stay on top of it as much as possible. So it's not just they're taking notes and we're not seeing that information. We get most of the calls from the residents that are very angry. They've called, this is their second time that they got missed, or the second time they've called and not had any response. I immediately contact the head by email, so I do that quite often.
That's good to know, because I guess I've got people calling, and they say, well, we call town hall, and they just tell us to call them, and I just wanna know if there's, when there's repeat mistakes on, like you just said, on certain roads, 2 months in a row, it gets annoying for them, I understand
And
that.
to us too.
Right,
So they call us, they call them, they call us, we tell them to call them, we also call them, we also email them. It takes a lot of the morning, the day after so we were trying to get them, if I don't hear from any residents on Wednesday morning, I try to give them, hey, I had no resident calls today. It's an unusual thing, so try to give them some kudos. Whoever they have working on our route is doing a good job, that type of thing, so we could try to keep them, but, all right, so we were at solid waste. There's no change in weed control. Page 6, oh wait, let's stay on page 5. Do you want to discuss anything on page 5? Go back to anything on page 5. We've got Public Works.
I don't know how we're gonna live with a 43% increase in salaries, but,
So do you want to revisit that?
you
Did you say yes or no?
know. Anybody else?
Well, the majority of that is an extra person, correct?
Well, I
I mean,
realize
that's-
that is a person.
I mean, is that what we need to discuss, if we're gonna hire another person or not?
That's correct.
All right.
Okay. All right. We're just having a heck of a time trying to keep part-timers. They can go someplace else and make a little bit more, even if, or get their full-time job and benefits, so. All right, so page 6, we have change in the engineering fees reimbursed. We spoke about that on revenue. Our town engineering services kept the same. Our stormwater, we saw a little increase this year, so I recovered that for our proposed budget for 2020. Plan commissions, all the same, so the rest of it is all zeros, so there's no, in conservation and development, the only 2 changes was a reduction in engineering fees reimbursed and a stormwater permit and administration cost. Down at other financials, the only thing that we stay the same on is our debt service. We take the 2757 and pay our fee for the fire department digital radios to the county.
So bottom line, we're $217,000 out of round, is that
That's
the
correct.
bottom line?
That's correct.
Okay, so we either have to increase revenues or decrease expenses, some combination of that to make up the difference, is that bottom line?
That's correct.
I mean, one of the things that is a significant contributor to that, and we went through it at the bottom of page 2 there, is we do not have anything in place for fund balances applied, but we didn't have that going into this year either, and we went through that, and I don't think that's appropriate to do that at the beginning of a budget year, right? We've been through that. We're
That's
not gonna
correct.
put
You
anything
could do
in
that,
there.
or you could not, you could keep more of the general property taxes in the general fund instead of moving 400,000 into capital fund.
So we would move less into capital fund?
Correct. You could move less into capital fund to take care of your general budget.
Let's, I guess my suggestion would be maybe we could look at some of these things, not in any particular order, but item by item, and see if we might be comfortable doing some. I'll just start with one. Page 6, the 4th item down under engineering fees. Maybe we went through this and I wasn't listening real well, but town engineering services, we're projecting this year's end at 10,200. Was there some rationale to take that proposed budget of 15?
I just looked at the actuals for 18. Be
Right.
happy to reduce that. Would you like to go down to
I mean,
10,000?
I guess just for sake of discussion, I'll toss out, jump in, I'm gonna toss out 12,000 for town engineering services.
Okay.
Well, anybody else?
Anybody else?
Jump in, yes or no?
I'm okay with that.
That's a start.
It's a small start. All right.
So we're gonna go to what, 12 what?
12,000 instead of 15.
3,000?
3,000.
Okay,
Oh,
all right. 214 to go,
yeah.
plus 21.
So should we go through the ones that you wanted to revisit? So on
Yeah, I
page-
guess let's do that. Maybe that's the best way to go.
So on page
Go
three.
top down.
On page 3, we have.
Did we not, I didn't interrupt you, but did we not have anything from the revenue side that we thought we could deal with? Was that our conclusion?
The only thing I needed to, was the miscellaneous revenue. And I explained that as the bonds, but that's the only thing I have highlighted for that.
That's the,
That was the,
did I see it?
so,
So you gotta take another look at that. So at this point in time, we're pretty much looking all at the expense side of it, is that it?
I would think so, unless you're going to not move as much, tax levy
Understood.
into capital.
Okay.
So we've got, I've got legal fees as our first thing on page 3. Town legal fees. Last year was 40,000. We're projecting this year at 61,000. I gave you a number of 60,000 and you were considering lowering that.
Well, my concern with that was that, is that also part of the border agreement? Is there
No.
fees in that for that, or this is part of the border agreement fees also, the 60,000?
No,
No.
no, that's
So that's above and beyond the 60,000?
correct. That's in
Okay.
border.
And there's legal fees reimbursed above that isn't part of it. So this is at 20 plus 60 plus, I guess we don't really have designated, I don't think we've got designated under the border agreement what
That's
part of
correct.
it is.
That's correct.
But I would like to,
So for border
Reduce
agreement,
that.
right now, we've paid them 66,000. We paid,
paid who what?
we paid for legal fees, 6,600, I'm sorry.
Same as-
6,600.
That's better.
My heart stopped there for a
66.
second.
It's like, what? 6,600 for,
The border protection legal
Yep.
fees so far,
correct,
through whatever date that is.
right.
All right.
I'd like to go back to 40,000, I guess, is my,
That's where I'd like to go. And that'll be a challenge for all of us to try to constrain that. Anybody else in on that?
Why was there such a significant jump 18 and 19?
Well, we used to only have them come in on, during our plan commission meetings. Now we have them coming both meetings. Would be one. And then just the changeover, and we had some, we had the conditional use, that was a large write-up for him when we repealed that conditional use. And so some of those ordinance changes were written by him.
It's probably not for tonight's discussion, but at one point in time, the town actually contracted for legal fees on an annual fixed fee basis rather than an hourly basis. It's probably not for discussion tonight, but I don't know if that's a possibility, but that's something we might want to visit downstream.
What did you say, Bob? Back down to 40?
yes. Yeah, I'd be comfortable going back to 40 and hope for the best, I guess, at that point.
I'm in for that. Anybody else?
I would support that.
Hope for the best.
Okay. Next.
The next one is the salaries and wages for, my office.
Go back one more time. The 5 elections could be what? A spring primary?
Spring primary, presidential preference, our incorporation.
Presidential preference, is that same thing as spring primary and stuff, or is that something
And that's-
different?
That would be the same as the April election,
Well, that's what I meant. Okay,
the spring primary is February. The
got
April
it. Spring
election-
primary, April,
But because it's a presidential preference, it's a larger turnout.
I understand.
more people.
All right, so it's the April election. Okay,
Then we have the possibility of a special election for our incorporation. We have the fall election in August, which has all our partisan state.
okay, and the November
and the
election.
November
Fine.
presidential election.
Okay,
How many elections were in 2018?
Actually, one. Wait a minute.
So there's basically nothing to do about any of this. This is all kind of cut in stone.
It's your decision.
Really? I mean, well,
Totally your decision on.
we kind of
what
went
you
went
wanna
over
do.
this already with the numbers here and stuff, and it comes out, this is what it is, I guess, and that's,
Well, the only unknown is on the training part of it.
yeah,
The new staff, so I don't know.
that's a
We
good
gotta-
point.
We gotta start cutting, so I would think we could probably shave
Drop it 10 grand?
grand off, yeah.
I go with that. 140,
And then FICA and everything will go down too. So make that change
sure.
as well.
Do we know by, oh, we don't know by how much at all,
Yeah,
do we?
7.65% and
Okay.
6.55%.
That's right.
The next thing I have.
Woody, can I just ask one other thing? The health and dental benefits there, and I'm not looking at number, but comparing that like against the public works part of it. I mean, the health and dental benefits here is including or expectation of what? Just one full-time?
That's one full-time.
One
Right.
full-time?
And DPW I put in there as 3 full-time.
Okay,
And I'll get a better number once October hits, then I get the numbers from the state.
okay.
But I wanted to, it just seems like it never goes down, so I
All right,
popped it up, so then you're working with, if it goes down, it does nothing but better, but if I have to come back to you and say that I
Understood.
need an extra $2,000, that would be, or $8,000.
Unless we change the policy. How does it compare to our neighbors is the question to ask.
We have a very good policy. That's why we keep our people.
I don't know that that's why we keep our people, but
But we just talked to them, we're leaving.
I think it's our
They
great
don't get, they
personalities.
don't get their benefits. They don't get any of that stuff.
What'd you say, Dave?
It's our great personalities.
that's it.
I think that would have a lot to do with it, quite frankly.
Okay, so, the next thing you wanted.
So are we all committed to staying to a premium plan?
No,
Okay. 205,000 away. What percent of our plan do our employees pay? Do we know that number?
25%,
25?
25%.
And if I'm not mistaken, they pay all of their dental? Or is that not true?
No, that's part of the package.
Okay. So what is the impact if the employees pay 30%?
I don't know that offhand, but I can
fair enough.
I can get you that. I'll get you that with the new plan, with the new numbers.
Okay.
Is the fire? Is the fire department dental plan the same as, is it the same? Okay.
All right, can we go down to accounting? That was the next one.
I got a quick one, Kathy.
Okay, go ahead.
Supplies and expenses under clerk, what was that again, 66% increase? What is that for?
That's elections.
That's all election expenses?
So is that, just quickly, without diving too deep in it, the supplies and expenses for the election, that's what's driving extra?
So it'll go down the next year.
So what, just quickly, what does that entail?
Supplies
What are
and
we buying?
expenses.
Yeah,
The rolls of tape for all the machines, the tape for the Badger books, the ballots, our percentage of ballots, our percentage of notices, our tickets that we use, that's all of those things, all our goods to send out an absentee ballot, the papers, the 2 envelopes for every absentee ballot,
all right, okay.
Sticker that says I voted.
Huh?
that too.
Okay, continue.
All right, so accounting and sport, I was gonna take a look and just do a double check on the 4,000 there, just to,
Can I just go back for a minute on the computer support services, that's a big number. Is that, under support services, is that supplies and so forth, or what is that?
computer support services are like Gordon Flash,
Yeah,
our website design, our minutes on demand, anything that has to do with computer support, maintenance, goes in there.
I get it, it just seems like a staggering number, but I get it.
Our contract, I just talked to somebody today about seeing about having someone else come in and give us some bids when this Gordon Flesh contract is.
So where that says computer support services, can we just plug in Gordon Flesh? Is it more than
No.
Gordon Flesh, or it's
I
other
mean,
stuff?
There's a lot that's Gordon Flesh, but it's not all Gordon Flesh.
So mostly Gordon Flesh, all right.
So IT services, our website stuff, James Imaging, which is our copy machine,
Okay,
Microsoft. So,
Alright.
those are the things. Because we pay Microsoft for our software every year now. It's not, you buy it once and you get to use it until it's so outdated. Now, every year you have to pay a licensing fee for all your software. The next thing I had, was to review the liability insurance, so I will do that. Border protection was the next thing I had on the list. You wanted to drop that?
I would, and that may be hoping for the best, yes, I would like to drop that.
Completely to 0?
No,
Okay.
I guess I'd entertain discussion from other people, I'd like to drop that to somewhere between 20 and 40.
I would agree to that because I think you're right about being next year's expense.
I mean, I'm
We already paid for,
hoping a
Yeah.
huge amount of it is engineering. Rugged Melky was
Yeah.
what, 20-some thousand bucks? I mean, hopefully,
Yeah,
we're done with that, the planner and the consultant, I mean, I'd be willing to go 20 on that, is that too deep a dive for anybody else? We're not gonna know until we're there.
Right.
Oh, I think your legal fees are gonna be substantial.
You may be right.
Can we compromise and go 30?
I can live with that. Anybody else? Mike, you okay with that?
Is what it is.
Okay. Then, for, public safety, we have, salaries.
I'm gonna just toss something out, and maybe it's wishful thinking. I'm gonna toss out the 380 instead of 398. Any thoughts?
Well, there was a big bump last year. I don't think there really needs to be much this year.
You cut more than that? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah.
What do you got in mind?
Well, I think we should probably put some data to it. I mean, we should look at the number of runs and how they've been increasing 17, 18, and 19, and then apply the new cost per run to whatever it's gonna increase in 20.
True.
So I'd be interested in knowing what our annual increase in runs since 2017 has been. So a 3-year annualized rate,
Okay.
and then take the number of runs that we had last year, tell me what our cost per run was, add the annualized rate for 2020, multiply it out times your cost per run and plug it in.
So for tonight, you wanna stay at the 398 for tonight until we go through that exercise?
Sure.
What's anybody else wanna do?
I'm fine with that.
Alright.
Jim?
Well, I think it's gotta come down, so we're fooling ourselves if we're saying it's gonna be 398. I would shave 50 off of that,
How much?
50.
50?
Yeah.
Okay. 348?
Yeah.
I don't think I would dive that deep. I mean, I think we should shave something off of it.
So just to understand, what do you think is gonna change that's gonna allow us to go that deep? When we project that this year we're gonna hit 385?
Well, I think some of that'll come out in the data, but maybe reduce staff. I don't know if we're gonna be at the same level through the year.
Okay.
Let's do this so we can move ahead with it. You're 348, I'm at 380. I mean, anybody else jump in and let's see if we can kind of blend something out on that. Is that fair?
Yeah, I guess I'm more of a 380 guy than that, because I don't wanna cut it that far, but it's, I don't, this is a crapshoot as far as guessing how many runs you're gonna have and stuff like
Of
that, you
course,
just don't know.
of course
but-
it is.
But
So
I don't
you-
feel comfortable at 398 either, so I guess I would go 380.
380 for tonight. Mike, Jim, or Mike, David, where do you guys want to go?
I'd like to see that, run the numbers once, but just for the time being, yeah, I'm fine with 380 to take it down something.
So that's a decrease of 18, right?
Mike, where are you at?
Interested in the numbers, it doesn't matter up till then, so you put any number that you want there, from my point of view.
All right.
So just so we're solid, what we're looking for is the number of runs 17, 18, and year-to-date 19. And,
Cost per run.
yeah, total cost, so just total wages. That includes training and everything then.
Right.
Yeah. Got that, Kathy?
You want the training and everything else? Oh, the training.
No, the training would,
Personnel training.
yeah, total
Okay.
cost, that way, I mean, training is somewhat consistent through the year,
Okay.
through the years, I should say.
Okay. Gotcha.
Okay.
So the other, I'm gonna look at liability again. Building inspection services. I reduced it from 127 to 112.5, 127.5 to 112.5. Expecting to see at the end of the year 105, we were 112 in 18, that's what my suggestion would be.
Just, I got a little bit lost along the way. Run that back one more time, please.
So in, 2018, we had, $112,000. We are expected to end
I
this year
see.
at about 105,000. Last year, we budgeted 127,000. I said to go back to 112,000.
But this, correct me if I'm wrong, this is a function, I mean, we've got, what, 150,000 into it? This is a function of a percentage of that, is that it?
That's right.
So on one end, when we're adjusting something on one end, it adjusts by the other end.
Right.
So that's 75%.
They
We
do
get
75.
25, 75 goes to,
Right. So we bring in
Contractor.
150,000.
all right.
We pay them out 112,000.
Well, that makes sense at this point in time.
And
Just, again, a small one, but if you go back to fire department,
okay.
utilities, I know that's a pretty little thing, but if we're at roughly 3/4 of the year and we're at $12,000, is there any way that we can shave a bit, shave $1,000 or something off of that?
We can do that. Well, I brought it up also,
Yep.
so.
I mean, if we were at 14, and I know
14 and 18,
utility stuff is gonna cost
16
by,
and 19. I was just being,
no, I understand.
Well, the projected year end is 16,000, so I mean, it's probably more realistic
do you wanna go?
to be actual. I mean, I know what you're saying, Kathy, as far as,
I mean, we'd like to be able to cover all these things with a bit of a cushion, but we're gonna have to make some decisions, try to balance this out. Hopefully they're not foolish, but
All right,
have to
so
do something.
17,000 or 16,000? Which way do you wanna go?
I'm good at 16.
that's what I was saying, 16.
Let's go 16. Oh, sorry.
That's off of fire department utilities?
Yep.
We already reduced the public works utilities to 13,000 I had done, so.
I didn't get that, did we?
That's the next page.
Oh, that's the next page,
I had put
okay.
it down when you were talking about it
Okay.
last time. So, next page, we've got public works salaries going from 103 to 147 to bring in extra help, or bring our part-time person into full-time person.
Have you talked to Jerry about this at all? What's his feeling on it?
I mean, he sees the benefit, but he also sees the benefit of keeping part-time guys. The problem is we can't seem to keep our part-time guys. I think if we got a full-time guy, we'd have 3 people working all week long instead of 2 guys, and when one goes on vacation, then we don't have another guy, and
What are we getting for part-time? Are these college kids in the summer? Is that our part-time help? Or is it year-round part-time
we
help?
have a part-time guy during the summer, yes. But then we also have a gentleman, or we had a gentleman that worked, came in and worked, but he needed a full-time job. He was doing 2 jobs at the same time, and he just quit last week, so.
The part-time guy, you said he was on vacation a lot. How does that even work with part-time? How can he be
Well,
taking vacations?
So we can take off whenever we want. This doesn't come into work. He had planned vacations with his family.
So
He
the
doesn't get paid. he
the
just-
part-time guy is pretty much doing whatever he pleases, in other words.
Well, he's willing to come to work for you for so many hours.
It's the summer guy.
He's our summer guy. And so he's out of college, wants to go on vacation with his family, and he has those planned before he comes back. And we accept him because he was a very good worker during the summer, when he is young. He just usually takes about 2 weeks, 2 vacations in the summer.
Is he saying that he wants a part-time or a full-time job?
No, he is not. He's a college student, he's gonna be moving on. I don't know if he's coming back next year or not.
I-
You know, our other part-time gentleman left because he wanted a full-time position. And when we interviewed people in the past, that was their biggest thing. Will this turn into full-time? If I start part-time, could we turn it into full-time? That type of thing. You know, it's hard to have a part-time person, one, when it's raining and then they don't get to come to work. So every time it rains, you don't work, and when we just don't have work for you, you don't work, and if it's snowing, you don't work. So it's hard to keep a part-time person if you don't say you're guaranteed 28 hours and you're coming into work no matter what. But to have somebody kind of on call, most people need more solid income than that.
Where is the cutoff at which we have to offer and pay benefits? Is that 28 hours? Or what is that?
I think we kept it at 28, I think we can go up to 30.
I mean, the reality, it's the numbers. I understand somebody like a full-time position, it's not just about the salaries and wages. I mean, under health and dental benefits, we've got, what, 23 people at $23,000? Is that it?
That's right.
Is a full family plan?
How is it that a couple of years ago, we were running this place on 1 3/4 people, and now we can't do it on 2 point something?
They're doing more things, so they're back to mowing. Now they have to catch up with all the stuff they're
last 5
doing.
years too.
We've
On the
had
streets.
almost no subdivisions developed in the last 5 years.
Well, we just had Bellman's out here on Double X.
I don't think there's even a road in there, is there?
Well, there will be. Well, this is what the budget's for, is the future, next year.
So we had, we went without mowing, doing any ditch work or culvert work. We had a lot of personnel. We didn't have a full-time person for a while, so the DPW is backed up.
Didn't we feel that the mowing wasn't gonna cost us anything increase? I guess that's not so, huh?
Well, they don't go out and mow for 5 days a week all summer long.
No, but it's not just the mowing, you have to remember, cause it overgrew, now they have to go and they have to get all, bushwhack it all down and, trim the trees and, really get it pushed away from the road. It's a little more than just going and mowing an edge of the road, so.
And our part-time does not plow?
Our part-time does not plow. We didn't require a CDL with our part-time guy. And although he can be put in a kind of truck, a single axle truck, working for, Public Works, it helps when I talk to our insurance company that our guys do have CDLs. So our guy did not have a CDL. Jerry was not comfortable putting them into a big truck, let alone much of a small truck. But, I'd like, it's your call. We just know that we've seen an increase of work. They can't catch up. We're trying to get Jerry, the reason we went to a full-time position was to get Jerry, to be able to take his vacation. This is gonna be his, first year where he's gonna have his vacation all done and, he's been able to take a week here and a week there.
Is the contemplation, if we're to hire another third full-time person, that's somebody that could work independently?
three of them can work independently, but at the same time, it's, for safety reasons, it's good to have two people. Our problem is when one goes on vacation, the other one has to either mow the lawn or do some maintenance on vehicles, because if they can't cut trees, they can't be using a chainsaw without another person there, they can't be in a bucket truck. There's safety violations if we have them going out doing that kind of stuff.
There's a regulation that you can't use a chainsaw by
Yes.
yourself?
Yeah, there is. And you have to be a specific age to be able to use a chainsaw.
Well, I understand the age issue, but
Yeah.
I got bucket loads of people using chainsaws all by themselves. That's a new one by me.
I mean, my husband used it all the time by himself also, but
No, I'm
you
talking
want a
about,
person- you
I'm
want a
talking
person.
about in my professional life,
really,
certain.
no. It's a liability issue if you send somebody out there using chainsaw and there's not another person there if he cuts himself.
Well, that may be true, but I don't think it's a regulation that you have to have two.
That's here nor there. We're talking about a full-time position. We're $165,000 short.
I mean, I think, to me, what some of this is gonna come down to, and not getting downstream too far, but I mean, the contracted street maintenance for the $175,000, I mean, that's a huge ticket item there. I think I think some of this may come down to trying to close this out as to whether you wanna chew away at that, or chew away at the third full-time person, or some of both. I think that's part of what we're working with. And this is where it makes it a little bit difficult, and I don't know what other public works departments do other places. I mean, I don't know that much about it, but I mean, some municipalities and stuff, and can they keep their full-time crews on all winter long? I mean, I know they go out and cut trees, and we plow snow, in the winter. That's where it makes it difficult. I mean, I could sure see that during perhaps spring, summer, and fall, it would be desirable or necessary to have 3 people. I'm not sure in the winter what 3 people do, unless this other person plows snow and all that kind of stuff. I don't know what they'd all do.
Well, that person would plow snow, it's also, they used 4 people for doing tree trimming this year.
A lot of them do hire summer help for cutting grass, and then they do switch over and hire part-time people for winter help, just for plowing snow.
And we do have 2 people like that come in for part-time snow.
I guess for budget purposes at this point, I kinda like to leave it status quo and live with it for another year, and that's my opinion, I guess, I don't know.
So are we looking at 103, or are we looking at 105, 2%? Your call, guys.
I'll say go 108. What's somebody else want?
I'm good with that.
Yeah, for now, I don't think cards are on the table for another full-time. I'm fine with 108.
Right, then I'll adjust the FICA and such with that. And I'll adjust the health.
Just for discussion purposes here only, but the health and dental, you know, you had problems keeping a part-time guy here. Is there a possibility we can pay some part of the health? And that's a lot of reason a lot of guys work today is to keep, you know, they're retired and some are retired and they need health and health benefits. Is there a way to do that? No, why not?
I checked with our old company and our new company. Both of them said, no, they have to be working full-time. You can do a percentage. They can go down, any percentage under a full-time position drops you all the way down to 50%. So the employee has to pay 50%. So even if you say work 2 hours shy of full-time, they require you to pay 50% of yours, and nobody wants to they can't afford it. We offer it, but they can't afford it. We offer it to our firemen, and they all say no. All right, so what I have next is contract street maintenance. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Let's go back up to Public Works Utility. I have it marked down that you dropped it from 15 to 13.
Yep.
You discussed it last time. That's still okay? All right. Then street maintenance from 175.
We can see where there's numbers are headed, but I think that's gonna have to be pulled back a bit. I mean, I've got loosely, and I haven't done all the FICA stuff and everything. Mike, you got a number, or I had like 121 or something loosely, but we don't have
It's where I am,
some of the
124.
benefit stuff in it. I mean, maybe that's,
I'm at 124, so we're in the same ballpark.
all right.
So are you dropping it to 75?
No, we gotta find it somewhere else. I'm not in favor of cutting our street maintenance. It's the number one issue before we do anything else, short of fire.
I could see cutting it back a bit, but nowhere near that amount. I might, I mean, other people weigh in, I might on that be able to live with 120, 140, something like that, if we need to get that far.
I believe the chip seal is about 56 this year, the contract that came in at.
56.
I don't wanna drop that either, very much, if any.
So if you do the chip seal that we didn't do this year, that's 56, assume you're gonna do another 56 next year. It's 104 in chip seal. Then you get into your crack fill, which preserves your roads.
And the 45 was the crack fill that we did this year?
That sounds right. We already did damage to it on the capital side.
Would you be okay going down to 150, or do you wanna leave it alone?
I'd be okay with 150 for now.
I'm in the same boat as you, the roads are bad,
I agree.
it's hard. I would like to do double the chip seal because it didn't get done this year.
Did you come up with a number?
Not yet.
Still dreaming.
While people are pondering that, we gotta come back to that, but I mean, under 2 lines down from that, repairs and maintenance, that's on vehicles. I know we might have been looking at what we did in 18.
That's not only vehicles, that's just repairs and maintenance, so it could be vehicles, it could be building maintenance, I mean, it could be
I mean,
something.
are we at all comfortable taking that to 20, 24, 25?
Well, again, we gotta make some cuts, so I would be fine with 25.
I'm good with that also.
Anything on repairs and maintenance? I mean, anything on, supplies and expenses?
Well, based on what we historically have been doing, that seems kinda hard to chew at then. I mean, I suppose you could put 40 in there, I mean, just,
Crapshoot, 'cause I mean, in
It's a
reality,
crapshoot.
that
I-
45 is pretty realistic the way.
at least based on the recent history.
Right.
Wouldn't you say the same about 30 then? Well, except this year, our projected year.
Yeah.
Because last year was 29,000 as well for maintenance.
Well, I guess the equipment should cut down on maintenance, right?
Well, one would hope.
Well,
It's very true, that's the idea.
the idea is to cut back on maintenance when things start costing as much to fix as it has to pay for it.
We wouldn't have to do it so much. One would hope.
Kathy, on the revenue side for taxes, this 1,283,000, that's the maximum allowed?
That is,
And you got that number from the state already?
when you 75, you mean? Tax levy?
No, the proposed budget for 2020?
The
Yeah,
tax
that's,
part's
the tax part, the
1,275.
general tax is the very first line, general property tax.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes,
Yes, that is the, correct number.
Okay.
Minus the 400,000 that went into,
Yep.
And
Okay.
that's predicated on moving 400,000 to capital, right?
that's correct.
So your total general property tax revenue you're looking at is 1,675,442.
That's correct. All right, so we know we still have to come back and revisit the street maintenance. We can go down to salaries and wages for snow removal. There's no change in the costs on that. Last year was 12,000. We're expected to get to probably 30,000. We're at 23,000. We have November and December this year.
I think that's realistic.
Okay.
I mean, just a quick comment on that. If we're, and I know that's not equipment part of it, but if we're doing the labor component for that and doing more than half the town, I think that's a pretty good value.
I agree, and they did a fantastic job last year.
Right.
The snow plowing and road salting, I kept it at 70,000. They kept the contract that we're putting together is the exact same cost. Last year, we spent 55 or 56,000. We've spent 44,000 currently. I gave an estimate of 65,000, but for the 2 months.
I mean,
another 20,000.
If you look at last season, I think in terms of number of events or times that people went out, I know Jerry didn't send them out all the time. I mean, volumetrically, there wasn't very much snow last year, but I think there were quite a few times we had to go out for service for ice and that type of thing. I mean, I think there were, David, you might know better, but I think there were close to 40-some events. Now, Workman might not have gone out on all those, but I mean, was last year somewhat close to average in terms of the number of times the events people would have to go out, even though it wasn't a large volume of snow?
And it even took us into April too, this last year,
So was it
April 12th.
average in terms of times you had to go out?
After the first of the year, I'd say above average.
Above average as the first of the year. I think we're kind of fooling ourselves if we try to draw that number down. That's just my point of view. Anybody else?
All depends on what
Snow.
winter is.
Of course.
Yep, if
You'll jump in. I mean, the 70, if people think that's realistic, or you think we can come back on that at all?
It's hard to say.
I understand.
I guess you could maybe cut 5 off of there, but that's one event.
You want to go to 65?
I would.
65?
I'm good.
Okay.
Right, so we have supplies and expenses.
Well, you
That's
already,
our-
we have, just while you're pondering, there's about, I think, 10 to 11 years of data on that. I think it goes back to 2008 or 2009. There's a handful of, there's about 25, 26 participants. Most of those have been in through the duration. There's only a couple of drops or changes. I mean, if you, it's just my point of view, I think that's some pretty well-established data there. It fluctuates just a little bit seasonally, but I think there's a pretty big database for that. I've been opposed in the past to dropping that